On another exciting entry of Animation Deliberation, I, Scotty, go solo to talk about 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in preparation for the highly anticipated sequel, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We'll get into that right after this. Sing along if you know the words. One, two, three, it's time for Animation Deliberation, a conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah. Welcome to Animation Deliberation, the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. All right, people, let's do this one last time. My name is Scotty St. Clair. I have not been bitten by a radioactive spider, and for the last 2 years, I've been one of the co-hosts of the one and only Animation Deliberation. So, those of you have seen the movie that we're discussing, and I hope you have if you're listening to this podcast, you may recognize that little monologue as one of the recurring beats in the movie where every time we get a new spider person, they give us that little introduction. So just want to have a little fun with that and do my own rendition of that. But yeah, as stated at the top, you just got me today. Hopefully that's okay. But I know I can speak for my co-host when I say we are incredibly excited for Across the Spider-Verse, and this first movie is a big reason why. It's such a great quality movie and such a great introduction and treatment of the character of Miles Morales, and just a great celebration of Spider-Man and Spider-Man's legacy as a whole. And, I'm bearing the lead here by not mentioning just the groundbreaking animation style. So I do encourage everybody, like, as you're getting ready at the time of this recording, I'm going to see Across the Spider-Verse this afternoon. So I encourage everybody, like, as you're getting ready to go see this movie and you go and see it, or you're rewatching this original one, if you want to send us some feedback, we'd love to include everybody in this conversation, because I know we're not alone in being just incredibly excited for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and like we just want to build this hype train and get everybody to celebrate this. So yeah, send us an email, send us a voicemail. You can hit us up on all our social medias. Just search Animation Deliberation, or if you want to send us an email, animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com. So before I read the synopsis, just to refresh everybody's memories, I watched this movie last night, so it's still pretty fresh in my brain. But it was pretty great to watch, and I'm kind of thinking now, like, one of the themes of the movie is that, like, Spider-Man, anybody can be Spider-Man. I think that's one of the final lines of the movie. It's like Miles is fully owning that he's Spider-Man, and like anyone can wear the mask. And yeah, we all have not been obviously been bitten by radioactive spiders, but it really just comes down to who you are and the values that you have at your core. So with that in mind, that's one of the reasons I want to open this up to everybody and let everybody be a part of the conversation, because Spider-Man is one of the most beloved comic book characters for a reason. He's just so relatable and so much of an everyman, and his struggles and trials, whether it's Peter Parker or Miles we're talking about, it's great that the mantle of Spider-Man has been able to include diversity and just the nature of Spider-Verse, like knowing that there are so many different Spider people across the multiverse and the Spider-Verse is just one of the best parts of this movie. But I wanted to run down a few facts, as I mentioned before we get into the synopsis here. So Into the Spider-Verse was released December 14th, 2018, and that was the same year that both Spider-Man creators Stan Lee and Steve Ditko passed away, and the film is dedicated in their memory. And Stan Lee actually has a cameo. He's been well known for appearing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and the cameos there, but this came out before Captain Marvel, but this was one of his final cameos, and it was just really cool that they brought him to life in this new style, and it was great to see him. The film was co-directed by Bob Perichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman, and produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, known collectively as Lord and Miller. They, you know, received a lot of acclaim for a lot of their work, including Clone High in the animated realm. The Lego movie was from them. 21 Jump Street, They did. I should clarify. They didn't direct the Lego Movie, but I'm getting caught in the weeds there. Uh, let's see. Okay, I apologize. It was in fact the Lego Movie was in fact directed by them, but they're also known for the 21 and 22 Jump Streets. So they're just really funny guys and really talented guys. And the story was actually written by Phil Lord, with Rodney Rothman working with Phil Lord on the screenplay. But back to some more factoids here. Into the Spider-Verse won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature the year that it came out, and it brought in more than $384 million at the worldwide box office, and that was on a $90 million budget. So it's no wonder there's a sequel in the works. Like I remember it didn't do gangbusters upon release, but it was word of mouth, and it had a very successful long run theater experience, and especially for like an animated superhero film that was kind of unprecedented. So very successful film, and there's a reason they're making a franchise about it. Like we've got Across the Spider-Verse in the way, but already in like the headlines I'm seeing that there's a Spider-Woman movie that's being fast tracked, and who knows what else is on the way, but I'm sure we'll learn soon. To address the film's groundbreaking pulpy comic book aesthetic, the way they achieved that was by putting 2D hand-drawn animation on top of the 3D computer rendered models, and then they adjusted the frame rate. It fluctuates between 24 frames per second and 12 frames per second, depending on what action sequence is happening. And that really helped capture the feel of like flipping through the pages of a comic book. And we've seen this style. It's become a trend. Like last year's Puss in Boots: The Last Witch used a very similar style to great effect, and then even later this summer we're going to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. Definitely seems to be embracing this style, and looks very much influenced by Into the Spider-Verse and the Spider-Verse franchise. Got to talk about the soundtrack. So some standouts for me. I mean, it's just got a great hip hop soundtrack, and the fact that music is like so important to Miles, it's kind of great that we just have these sequences where we get to hear what he's listening to on his headphones. But I know the trailer that caught a lot of buzz and attention featured "What's Up Danger" by Blackway and Black Caviar, and that's just a great song and really captures the vibe, and it's a great sequence. And Miles is really coming into his own and takes that leap of faith that the characters talk about so much, but that is when he fully becomes Spider-Man, taking that leap of faith. And he's got the new costume that he created with May's help, and he's got the web slingers, and yeah, just awesome. Also, Sunflower by Post Malone, definitely a catchy tune, and that's actually the one that Miles kind of like sings to himself when we're introduced to the character, and like later on when Peter B. Parker's telling him to relax, like, how do you relax, kid? What do you do? He's, oh, I sing, and this is the song Sunflower by Post Malone that he kind of always sings to himself. Also, a nod to like classic uh, Hypnotized by Notorious B.I.G. Great inclusion of that. And then it's worth mentioning that the score itself was composed by Daniel Pemberton, and again, just like it's really is in keeping with all the hip hop influence and everything like that, but also delivers that kind of like epic superhero coming of age sound that we need to accompany this story. So I want to take now that we've got some interesting facts out of the way and have kind of introduced and reminded people of some of the things about Into the Spider-Verse. I want to take a quick second here before I get to the synopsis to take a little ad break and talk about our partner and sponsor here on the show, BlendJet. So if you haven't heard about this yet, BlendJet 2, it's a great product. We're happy to be talking about it here on Animation Deliberation because it's something that I know I can speak for my co-host when I say it's something that we use pretty much every day. For me, I am using these kind of like meal replacement shakes, and I live in a shared living environment, so I don't always have the kitchen to myself. So the ability to just kind of like Sneak in, grab what I need, and just put it in the blender and then kind of sneak off is really valuable to me. Cleaning up is just super simple and easy, so I don't have to spend prolonged periods of time in the kitchen with my roommates. Don't get me wrong, I like my roommates, but I am a person that enjoys my privacy and alone time. So the Blend Jet certainly suits my lifestyle. So the Blend Jet is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. Blend Jet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothing without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via USB-C. Best of all, Blend Jet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. And with Spider-Verse, we get to see such an array of spider people in all sorts of costumes and all sorts of colors. And that just makes me think of the Blend Jet too, because it's got more than 30 cool colors and patterns to choose from. And as animation fans, we're delighted that they have a whole line dedicated to some of our franchise. In particular, Pixar comes to mind, like they have a whole Toy Story line. So you can really make your Blend Jet kind of a showcase of your personality and your fandom. So one more thing to love about it. Another thing to love about it is that they've now introduced the Orbiter lid, and this is a leak-proof lid. So your favorite ensemble is safe from spillage with this lid. It's got one-hand convenience. You've got your hands full. Luckily, you only need a thumb to open this lid. It's got a large opening that's perfect for thick smoothies. There's even room for a straw if that's the way you like to sip. Again, it's self-cleaning. Simply rinse the lid. Excuse me. Simply spin the lid and rinse. And it's engineered to keep spills at bay. So, what are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. And be sure to use the promo code STAYWHELM12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anywhere, blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code STAYWHELM12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever. All right, and back to Into the Spider-Verse. So I did want to, for those of us that did not have the opportunity to rewatch the movie, but are planning on seeing Across the Spider-Verse, and you're kind of using this as your hype builder, hype train, primer, what have you, let's do this little refresher here. So, New York City teenager Miles Morales, voiced by Shameik Moore, struggles to live up to the expectations of his father, police officer Brian Tyree Henry's Jefferson Davis, who sees Spider-Man as a menace. Miles adjusts to prep school and visits his uncle, Aaron Davis, voiced by Mahershala Ali, who takes him to an abandoned subway station to paint graffiti. Miles is bitten by a radioactive spider and gains spider-like abilities similar to Spider-Man. Returning to the station, Miles discovers a collider built by Wilson Fisk, played by Liev Schreiber, who hopes to access parallel universes to bring back his late wife and son, whose deaths he blames on Spider-Man. Miles watches as Spider-Man attempts to disable the collider while fighting Wilson's henchmen, Green Goblin, and the Prowler. Spider-Man, in a vocal cameo from Chris Pine, saves Miles, but Green Goblin shoves Spider-Man into the collider, causing an explosion that kills Goblin and wounds Spider-Man. Spider-Man gives Miles a USB flash drive designed to disable the collider, warning that the machine could destroy the entire city if reactivated. After watching in horror as Wilson kills Spider-Man, Miles flees with the Prowler in pursuit, eventually getting away from him. As the city mourns Spider-Man's death, Miles tries to honor his legacy and become the new Spider-Man. While trying out his newfound abilities, he inadvertently damages the drive. At Spider-Man's grave, Miles meets Peter B. Parker, brought to life by Jake Johnson, an older and worn-down version of Spider-Man from another dimension. Upon meeting him, Miles discovers his ability to emit bioelectric bursts called Venom Blasts. Peter reluctantly agrees to train Miles in exchange for help stealing data to create a new drive. They infiltrate Wilson's research facility, and Miles discovers he has the power to turn invisible. They are confronted by mad scientist Olivia Octavius, voiced by the talented Kathryn Hahn, who discovers that Peter will die from cellular decay if he remains in their dimension. Chased through the laboratory and surrounding Chased through the laboratory and surrounding forest by Octavius, Miles and Peter are saved by Haley Steinfeld's Gwen Stacy, a Spider Woman from another dimension. They then visit the deceased Spider Man's aunt, May Parker, played by Lily Tomlin, who is sheltering more Spider people from other dimensions. Spider Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider Ham, voiced by Nick Cage, Kimiko Glenn, and John Mulaney, respectively, who are also deteriorating. Miles offers to disable the collider so others can return home, but after questioning and testing him, they tell him that he lacks experience. Distraught, Miles retreats to Aaron's home where he discovers Aaron is the Prowler. Miles returns to May's house where Penny has completed the new drive. He is followed by Wilson, Prowler, Octavius, Scorpion, and Tombstone. In the ensuing brawl, Miles reveals his identity to Aaron just as Aaron corners him. Unwilling to kill his own nephew, Aaron spares Miles, but is fatally shot by Wilson. Miles flees with Aaron, who tells him to keep going before dying. Jefferson arrives on the scene and Miles escapes, leading Jefferson to mistake Spider-Man as Aaron's murderer. The heroes regroup with a devastated Miles at his dorm room. Peter restrains Miles to ensure his safety and leaves with the others, choosing to sacrifice himself by staying behind and deactivating the collider. Jefferson arrives outside Miles' doors and, assuming Miles does not want to speak to him, apologizes for his mistakes and inspires Miles. Miles then manages to control his powers, escapes his restraints, and creates his own Spider-Man suit with May's help. He joins the heroes, defeating Wilson's enforcers and using the new drive to send them home. Wilson fights Miles, attracting the attention of Jefferson, who realizes that Spider-Man isn't the menace he saw him as. Jefferson encourages Miles, who subdues Wilson with his Venom Blast and throws him at the kill switch, causing the collider to explode and saving the city. Wilson and his henchmen are arrested for their crimes, and Jefferson recognizes the new Spider-Man as a hero while receiving evidence of Wilson's murders of Peter and Aaron. Miles embraces the responsibilities of his new life, while the heroes return to their lives in their own dimensions. Miles embraces the responsibilities of his new life, while the heroes return to their lives in their own dimensions. Later, Gwen finds a way to contact Miles from her own dimension. And then in a post-credit scene in another dimension, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, voiced by Oscar Isaac, travels to the universe of the 1967 Spider-Man animated series and argues with its Spider-Man over who points first. So there we have it. You know, I guess I kind of want to say, like, I've really celebrated this movie, and I think I've seen it. I think this was maybe my fourth or fifth time watching it. I saw it in theaters, of course, and then when it came out, available for purchase, I bought it as soon as it came out. And I really, really enjoy the film for so many reasons. I mean, I talked about the groundbreaking animation. Spider-Man has always been one of my favorite characters. I pretty much love all the Spider-Man movies except for the Amazing Spider-Man 2. But that's neither here nor there. And Spider-Man 3 has its issues, but I still have love for it in some regard. But I know, like, one of the conversations around this movie. I mean, obviously, it's an excellent movie. It's got a great story. It does a great job introducing Miles. But one of the, like, things I've often heard like touted about this movie is, like, it's the definitively best Spider-Man movie, and, like, that's something that I don't know. I always kind of, like, bristle against, and of course, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Like, if it's your favorite Spider-Man movie, good on you. I'm happy for you, but it's tough for me to say that it's definitively the best because I think, as I mentioned, it kind of it as much as it introduces Miles and kind of celebrates the legacy of Spider-Man. I wonder how the film would stand on its own 2 feet without the already, like, built-in legacy of Spider-Man, and that way, I think it's kind of like a deconstruction of who Spider-Man is. Like, if this was the first Spider-Man movie we ever got, and they were saying, like, there's not the one and only Spider-Man. Anybody can be Spider-Man. Like, I don't know how well that message would land. So in that regard, like, this is definitely one of my, like, top 3 Spider-Man films, and, like, I've been more excited for Across the Spider-Verse than I have been for any movie in quite some time. So I don't know. Homecoming kind of, like, stands out towards the top to me. I really like those first couple of Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. I kind of go back and forth between the original and Spider-Man 2 about which one's my favorite. And yeah, in some ways they haven't aged super well. I mean, No Way Home is great as well, but I kind of equate it in a similar way, and it's interesting that they both, like, deal with the multiverse and like multiple Spider-Man and whatnot. And in that regard, they're like, yes, they're awesome, like landmark achievements, but we only get there because of all the groundwork that's been laid before and all the character work that's been laid before. And I think it's kind of like Endgame. Like obviously, Endgame is a great movie too, and just such a culmination. But would that movie like work on its own without everything that's come before that point? And what I will give credit to, Into the Spider Verse for, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking this movie. I really really like this movie, but the thing I will distinguish it for doing differently than some of these other movies I compared it to, like No Way Home and Endgame, is that while it is like a deconstruction of Spider-Man and a celebration of his legacy, again, it does such a wonderful job establishing Miles and introducing Miles to mainstream audiences. So yeah, I wanted to keep this one kind of short and sweet rather, and just kind of use it as a, like I said, a hype builder, kind of a refresher, just get everyone collectively excited for Across the Spider Verse. And yeah, yeah, I know. Just to talk about Across the Spider Verse a little bit, like like I said, I'm going to see it this afternoon, but it's there have been some reviews that have come out. I've stayed away from reviews. They said they're spoiler free, but I've just been very wary because I'm so excited for this one. I don't want anything to be spoiled for me. But like this sequel has a lot to live up to. Like I've talked about how great this first film was and why it has the reputation it does. But Across the Spider Verse is like, it's going to be the longest animated feature ever released theatrically, at least here in the United States. It's like clocking in at 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it reportedly features over like 240 unique characters, like six different multiverses or dimensions, I should say. And so it's it's a tall order, but the non-spoiler like early reactions I've heard have been overwhelmingly positive. Like people are calling it a masterpiece, and I do think this first film is a masterpiece, even with some of the things that I kind of nitpicked. I do believe it's a masterpiece, and we already know that we're getting beyond the Spider Verses in the works. So people have been comparing this one to kind of like Empire Strikes Back, and that the ending might be, or the tone overall might be a little more darker or more melancholy than we're expecting. But I, I I trust, Lord and Miller and all the people that are working on this and Sony Animation. Like I think they're going to hit it out of the park. And even if it is a more like riveting and dramatic story, like the humor is going to be there. Just in the trailers we've seen so far, it's already had like several laugh out loud moments. Super excited for Oscar Isaacs, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, of course, Jason Schwartzman's the Spot, the multiversal villain there. Issa Rae is another version of Spider-Woman. Um, Yeah, yeah. There's just so many, and I think Daniel Kaluuya is going to be like Spider Punk. Like, there's too many to name, honestly. But I wonder if I will find myself like missing some of the Spider people that we had in this one. Like, Nick Cage's Spider Man Noir is absolutely hilarious. Like, the wind goes with me wherever I go, and of John Mulaney's Spider Ham. Like, it's so great. Like, you got a problem with cartoons? And it's like, we're watching a cartoon right now. So that's great. And the fact that like they're all telling their origin stories, and he's like, everyone was bitten by a radioactive spider, but he was bitten by a radioactive pig. He was a spider that was bitten by a radioactive pig. That's like great. And when they're on the rooftop and Gwen says, she's talking about Wilson Fisk, Kingpin. She says, "What a pig!" And he's like, "I'm right here." Like, I think I'm gonna miss those two characters especially, but I have no doubt they will introduce me to a wealth of Spider people that I'll fall in love with in a similar fashion. So I don't want to be too long winded here. I think I've already gone longer than I originally anticipated, but again, just want to encourage everybody. Be a part of the conversation as you're rewatching Into the Spider Verse, getting ready for Across the Spider Verse, or once you've seen Across the Spider Verse. Like, write in, let us know your feedback, send a voice memo, hit us up on social medias, all those things. And a 5-star review would definitely be appreciated. But you can also just, like, share us with your friends and if you've got people in your life that love animation and they love Spider-Verse and they want a place to kind of gush about it, send them our way. We'd definitely appreciate it. So, okay, on that note, I'll go ahead and swing off into the Spider-Verse myself, and just want to thank everyone for listening and for tuning in. That's TOONIN. And as always, stay whelmed.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.